And that's it, we are live. So hi, welcome to the SUSE workshop. Today are for mine and me like to talk about the topic of the ecosystem. So Santi, could you say what is the openQA ecosystem, and then we have some examples which you wanted to go over.
Yes. Let me share my screen right now.
Yep.
If I manage to find it, so allow share screen, and then I want to share the entire screen. We don't care today. Now, the whole thing, or the idea of what we call openQA ecosystem, it's comprised of two parts. We have our tooling, and the things that we need for the work we do, which is all here. So it means that we have openQA, where there is some development happening. There is the openQA infrastructure and the quality engineering infrastructure in general. So that means things that we have for O3 and OSD, and then the things that are related to the toolchain. Yeah. On the other end, to the maintenance toolchain, sorry. On the other end, we also depend a lot on what we call the test distribution. We have the continuous integration and continuous deployment that we do. There is also the quarter a million lines of code, so 250,000 more or less lines of just pure Perl test code. And then, of course, there is the governance. How do we approach review of pull requests, both from internal contributions? So all this is let's say two boxes. So one is for the tools, QE Tools team, which is basically everything that is development of the things that we need to work. And then on the other hand, we have the QE Core platform team. This overlap between we take kind of ownership of the CI/CD governance and the maintenance. But then there is a part where there are other persons that are kind of contributors to it.
And this is specific about, let's say, OpenSUSE and thing that the engineers would relate to.
Kind of. Let's get there in a second, because it's a bit bigger than that, I think.
Because it says test distribution, as there would be one distribution for many QA engineers. It's SUSE that would be, there is one distribution was ordered SUSE test, but obviously for openQA, and in particular when here talking about the broader community, other communities have their test distribution or multiple distributions, and that even includes us as a tools team. What we care about are, for example, two other test distributions. One is this example, like any example repository, and the openQA and openQA test, which is our test distribution.
Correct. So the idea here is that when I talk about test distribution, this is more on the broader scope. Like we, at least with the idea of the ecosystem, we will aim to provide tooling and processes and ideas for other, let's say, for anybody who wishes to use openQA, so that they can get started not from scratch.
Yes.
And that's why on the customer side, which is completely out, we have QA SLE as a downstream, so you can see the hand down. Then you have OpenSUSE, Fedora, Alma Linux, GNOME. They are considered upstream. And then we have QA as a service. This is where, for instance, I see tools team as part of the same community that benefits from whatever it's built into that test distribution.
Right.
Does it make sense?
Yep.
Good. And now we also have
just one more point about clarification, maybe obvious by that point, but when we are talking about Q4, we mean the corresponding teams within SUSE with that name.
Correct. So effectively, what this proposal ends up doing is introducing the concept of governance to the whole ecosystem itself. But yeah, so basically what we are trying to make sure that it's clear is that there is this broader community, because the project grew beyond SUSE and beyond openSUSE, and we have to acknowledge that. So we treat anything upstream, or at least the intention is to port the openSUSE model to other places, but also use it within SUSE itself. So that's also why, for instance, internal teams like maintenance coordination and probably L3 will also be considered parts of our customers or stakeholders. Now, with that, there is feedback. I think it's wish list. So yep, we have, yeah. So we have been discussing about for quite some time, I think, Oliver. Like, I don't know. I think at least since November last year.
Yeah, longer than the age of this ticket. This one says 4 months ago, but
4 months, and we have been talking about this for ages. So, but in general, what we want to do is we want to bring openQA to, let's say, not necessarily the next level, but knock it up a notch and make sure that we have things that define, that explain the architecture, how to collaborate, and even take care of user feedback. So right now we are working under this big saga, like state of the art openQA experience, and we have 3 parts here. So we have the GNOME wish list, we have the feedback that was given by Jose, and at some point I had a talk with I don't remember, but openSUSE. So let's do it like this. Is it? I will just stop sharing my screen in a moment. Figure it out. So because we also had a chat, I also had a chat with Teamstar something like 1.5, 2 years ago. And that's also feedback that for us is very important for this approach. As I consider Teamstar one of our biggest clients, if we want to think about it this way. But for now, let's roughly go through the list on the feedback that we got from GNOME, because one of the things that Oliver brought up is like, hey, not everything has to be. We don't have to do everything, and that's true. However, there are things that we can tackle together as a community. Now we have QA community call across different distributions. So I think it's once a month, every second Thursday or something like this. So we had already the first one. We need to follow up, but we have people from outside interested in collaborating beyond just doing openQA. Now, Oliver, how would you like to do this?
Yeah, so you collected some feedback. I think we can just go through some examples. Continue with that ticket, and we can say, we can see where the feedback is coming from. What are the areas where people think like, okay, this worked well, and this could be or collaboration system. And then later on, we can also comment on what part of that is part of a specific plan, what is maybe some rough ideas, and there's no yet if you do that or not. And then also, as mentioned, be explicit about maybe some things which we as a tool within SUSE probably wouldn't be able to, for whatever reasons, which we can then explain.
Yeah. So there is the feedback. So the source is there on the GNOME thingy. Now, when we go to the things that they will, I think that these are what's the name? The initial part are the things that they like. So the web API and command server allows building custom tooling, which is something that it's great about openQA. The same thing about the web UI, even though the needle management can be improved. There are even some topics, not only here but all across the board. Logs being available, they also like this a lot. It helps them do things faster. Ready-built containers make it easier to set up. The video is also fantastic to figure out what is the test doing, and so on and so forth. We have upstream maintainers that are always friendly and responsive. And this type of testing wasn't just possible before, and that's like really the cherry on the top, on the good things. Now, things that we are trying to work on is like the collaboration with downstream distros, QA teams. So right now we have already started talking about this call, and part of the idea of talking about test distributions, even thinking about doing releases of the test library. So anything that is under lib lib. So my thinking is to really get to the point where we can do a CPAN release of this thing here, so that others can build upon and consider, hey, we have a stable API to write our tests. Because one of the things that we were mentioning is that everybody is testing GNOME. GNOME is testing GNOME. OpenSUSE is testing GNOME. So, hey, why don't we collaborate? Why don't we try to share the same things? And we can start by, making sure that there is a stable lib, and then look forward to even improving on that part. If anybody has a thought, comment, just interrupt, and let's go through it. So this needs a little bit of update because we effectively have something already in HedgeDoc. So these are the meeting minutes from the make call. And then there are a couple of notes on things that we want to do So it's there. It's definitely moving. So this is the second call actually. Now moving on, documented support for transient workers. So they don't have capacity to maintain the fleet of dedicated openQA workers. So they run openQA on GitLab runners, but it's not entirely supported in openQA. So it works, but they don't have developer mode to be able to use. So they have a openQA worker set up on GitLab runners, which works. It works for them, but no developer mode makes debugging certain things a bit more complicated. But then writing the documentation is a matter of just somebody picking it up and defining how it works. But then again, we can try and give a little bit of help to try to figure out how to make the developer mode work, or even take it a step further and allow package maintainers or upstream maintainers of XYZ application to use openQA in developer mode directly in their on their computers. So that's, for instance, one idea there. Now, they want also they also would like to have branching in needles and tests. So this is one of those things that by now we are doing the same thing that we have been doing in the past, because we haven't really looked at different ways. But yeah, they want to have like one for different GNOME versions and so on and so forth. So there is a maintenance cost on this, but that can be thought about. So openQA calls GNOME OS master ISO. How do we swap master for? I think that let's see.
Yeah, give the connections to
On the logs, but there is nothing that shows up in the web UI. Nor I think it's needed. Hello?
Yep. Guess we're good again.
Okay. I don't know. Is my connection okay, or
I'm not sure on which side it is. I'm suspecting. By the way, regarding that branching, I think, I mean, there is a mention of a specific idea about how to branches, but I think there are different levels on it. For example, for the and fleet tests, you have one single repository for each fields as well as test code. Do the branching within code, also based on this env variables, environment variables. So you can say the needle applies to Tumbleweed or the needle only applies to an older leap version in maintenance. And that's not really documented. This is like really tailored around how the openSUSE tests are using that. And that means that others, like for GNOME, they wouldn't be able to really find that. So, we can either develop better features or we can just try to make it more accessible what's already there, like documentation.
Yeah, I think that, and here I think we can take the least part of resiliences, which is document.
Probably, yes.
I'm just making a note here. Now, there is the part of moving the local development workflows. And there is this part here is maintained by command line users. And, openQA, they feel that it's designed to be web first. So where we have an for. So ideally, we would like to try to have a make style local build. So when you are in your openQA test district, do I don't know, make run or I don't know, make local test, and then you get a local openQA run, as we can run OS autoins without the need of all the overhead that openQA gives. So that, and it's like something that we can both work together, like as an overlap. Because right now what everybody is doing is we are setting up a full-blown instance, and this is not necessarily scalable. There is an attempt to solve this, which is a wrapper around an OS autoins container. It's a lightweight workflow, and I think that they have that in the GNOME repository somewhere. So I need to ask Sam to put the link. The same for the Canvas tool, which is basically a small needle editor that they just boot up. They boot up a machine, they connect to it via VNC, and then they get it to a state where they want to create a needle. Or at least that's what he described to me of what they were doing. And what else? So versioning of the APIs, it's something that we kind of tried in the past, but it's more of just a number that we are comparing between the different service APIs that we have within openQA. But that is something that we can also look into months, years from now. And I think that we do recently mention something about SEM versioning, Oli. So I think maybe that can be related or put into there.
Not really. I would say from my point of view, we do have proper versioning. Maybe that's, again, not apparent enough. So might be also something which we just need to make more clear in documentation, I guess.
Yeah. On the next part, there is this docs for supporting functions. I'm not sure if, but if you go to, I think it's OS Autoins distro OpenSUSE, you get this very ugly thing, but it works, it's there. And if the person who wrote a module did the work took the we basically do a conversion of purple to HTML and publish that. So there are some functions that are documented. A lot of people have worked on this from time to time, but it's there. It's and I think that we can slowly over time work on this, but not only for the library, but also maybe for the tests themselves. Have a proper pod documentation on what's the intent of the test, why the test is behaving in such and such way, and that can help us work building this test analysis database here, because then we can use different parsers to do things further. But the wish here is that and here I want to go to their documentation, because it's basically a reflection on how we work. So when I need something like serial console support, I copy paste from OS@OINST until it works. And this is exactly the state, and I think that many of us are familiar with this. And in here, I really agree that this is going to be different for each distro. But there are common enough parts that we can share across distributions. And I think that that's the idea behind having, so we have openSUSE based tests, for instance. And this is the part where the specialization should happen, and not being distributed across different parts of our test code. Like, I don't know, patching systems and things like that could be under the openSUSE namespace instead of abstraction layers, instead of having a dedicated, I think it's update install or patch. I don't know, but for instance,
possibly not as a module name.
Yeah, but it's there somewhere. But it's one of the things that could be changed and kind of improve. So we have repo tool, for instance. So, and all of these ones are depending on are very specific to openSUSE. While the functionality of I don't know, installing a package can be wrapped around something else. So the moment we have to test a completely new distribution, we could just reuse what we have already by the moment we get to doing releases of the test library, of the test distribution. And then there are other things, the way for handling the needles, better audio testing, support for multi-touch. One of the things that I really like, so something that we are working right now, it's the support of running openQA tests in pipelines. So you might have seen the discussions around this particular feature, which I will get to in a second, which is running a basic test and monitor openQA. So what we are basically is figuring out right now, and this was implemented by Tools team. They are figuring out, hey, what is the last build on Tumbleweed, and then they trigger a test there based on what they find. We have feedback. I have shared the feedback with the Tools team, like, hey, we need improvements on this, and Marius Kittler is working hard on that as well. And the part where the work of the SUSE QE Tools team and SUSE QE core team starts overlapping is, for instance, CI/CD, coding style improvements, because just recently we added a new ticket. So we recently added 2 tickets, actually. So one is to make the dispatch of the openQA run dependent on successful compilation. But on top of that, one of the things that I discovered with Christopher Hawk is that it might be the case. So right now, if there is a new contribution, so from somebody who is just starting or somebody external, they can create a pull request in the test distribution, and automatically they will get this openQA basic run. So there is potential for a malicious actor to, I don't know, try to attack the OpenSUSE infrastructure, at least the openQA.
Well, a new person that never contributed, by default, GitHub will ask for approval to run all the CI checks.
No.
So, well,
no, it doesn't. So it asks for approval to run most of the CI checks,
yeah,
but not all of them.
okay, that would be interesting. Yeah, well, if that is the case, then look into hardening that.
Exactly, and that's exactly one of those parts. So yeah, this one I approve. But in any case, that's the state there. You don't really necessarily need to look for deeper examples, but you get the idea. But it's there, and that explains more or less the difference between where I see Tools team and QE core collaborating. So hey, can you guys help us implement this feature, and then we take over to try to make that feature more either make sure that it's secure or make sure that whatever is within the test distribution has an owner, basically. And that goes along with the thing that we recently found out, that we are running the ISO to video check only for 32 bits. And honestly, we should have it for the 4 architecture, so that we know if there are differences or changes in the default schedule for all of those. Let's see. Then there is the part of hardware testing for GNOME. So this is also something that popped up. We haven't. So when I think that when we talk about hardware testing here, we're talking about end users in particular. And one crazy idea that I've had for a while is to introduce laptop testing. So for that, we have already some Intel development boards, like this beautiful thing that is here. Let me just stop sharing for a second. So you see this beautiful thing that is here. So it's one of those things that I plan to hopefully get to a point where we can connect that to in our data centers and have some OpenQA testing of real hardware the same way that we do it for Raspberry Pi. And then there are other things like having the recording a reply of the entire test run, at least for the ones that support QEMU. So by using replay, I've looked into it at some point in the past, and during the QE Core workshop in June, I think that's one of the features that I'm looking forward to try to implement during one of the sessions. And that's the GNOME wish list. There is the feedback from Jose. And, so this is pretty lengthy. And I'm sure that some of you might have read that. But there are things that that come up that also help this whole idea. One of them is that, hey, we don't, so there is the alignment across all QA teams, and then you have this part where PR can take days of discussion over structure of code. And there are different ways how we can approach this. And one of them is like as a, not necessarily as a rule, but as a kind of common courtesy, we can even get to an agreement where we say, okay, so the person that does request changes will be the only reviewer that has to make sure that this pull request is approved. So, because right now we use the request changes button in a fairly liberal manner. So everybody does that, and then figuring out who to listen or figuring out how the conversation goes can create a little bit of confusion, because then you have to listen to different persons on in terms of I don't know, code style, or what are you doing here, or something like that. So that's something that we can be starting to trigger the conversation around, because that also can help us lower the bar for external contributors, but also help internal contributors to feel more I don't know, empowered to create pull requests that are more aggressive, so to speak. So I don't know, somebody decides to rewrite util libutils because it's a file with almost 3,000 lines of code, something like that. So now the main thing, there is another part that we don't have. The agreements that we have, we don't have them explicit. So there are things that we say like, okay, so we do it like this, but we have way too many flavors, so to speak. So there are at least 4 openQA installation guides, 4 different ways of approaching, I don't know, doing things with systemd. So we should try to get to a place where in general the common development works. There are a lot of items here that I would like to cover as well, but and some of them are SUSE specific, so I will not get too deep into that. That's also why the ticket is within our internal project. But at least the ones about the project architecture is something that we can take a look together. But then there is this part of how, for instance, the UI is working in openQA. So yesterday, talking with one of our working students, we realized that we not only we acknowledged, but we were saying like, yeah, there is a lot of empty space in here, and of course we don't want to clutter the UI, but perhaps at some point we can introduce some ask a UI UX expert or person to help us to figure out what could be the um, best way to improve the reviewer experience. Because after all, every time we're looking at the web UI, we're talking about the review experience, which is much different from the OpenQA development, test development experience. So that's also a differentiation that I look forward to doing in the future. And when it comes to how we work, so there is this one that alignments, so that there is not too much alignment and so on and so forth. We have the how to contribute document in the test distribution, which we can use as a starting point in general for the overall OpenQA ecosystem, because I think that is the one that has evolved the most and has the biggest amount of eyes looking at it when there is a change or when somebody wants to propose. So that can be used as a part of the governance model, so to speak. And I think that with that, I will just come back to the initial point. So the idea of the ecosystem is, again, we have a team that is dedicated to the maintenance and ownership of the test distribution. That doesn't mean that they own the test themselves, but just the things that test developers build upon. Then there is the tools team that is dedicated to improving the developer experience and the reliability of OpenQA. And then we have, our customers, where even us as the QE core team will be customers of our own thing. So, and that's the picture. I was expecting interruptions here and there, but I see that there are not many. Any thoughts, ideas, comments?
So one observation that I made regarding the teams working, just examples about that. We have more and more specialization on. That's why they're relying on lib, but then I guess for many during their day-to-day work, they have little opportunity to say like, hey, I need to, was as a challenge for you guys in core more and more to, keep everything together and then even improve it and make it right.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I'm trying to focus more and more on implementing checks. I eventually want to look into adding or learning how to create new rules in for Perl Critic. I think it's a great tool, a bit misunderstood, so we can let scripts do all work. So hey, if we are finding an if condition that has, I don't know, like more than three conditions, like already trigger a warning or a check like, hey, this is not really understood. I think that by now we have already a check where we are not allowing using check var arch in the test distribution, for instance. So if somebody wants to do that, they should be stopped by the CI. And these are, very small things. But then on the other hand, we can have, and we will be having more and more unit tests for things that are in the test distribution as well. And then in that moment or in that process of adding more unit tests, we can come up with the part of applying the Boy Scout rules, or cleaning the house a little bit. And then other teams that have their own libraries like public cloud, SIP, we can also offload a little bit of that work by collaborating together.
Yes, one more note that already some years ago we came up with the concept of wheels plugins, which generally worked for many years, but then you guys also encountered a scalability problem, as in always clone from the same GitHub repository again. That is fixed while by using a bit smarter caching approach. Like if you have any external repository, like let's say one of those components from the lib folder you extract into a separate repository, and then reference that in the test distribution, then it will be checked out if it's not already there locally.
Mm-hmm.
So the workers would cache that code, and with that, the original problem should be addressed. That is just one of the multiple ways how to approach that. I just want to mention that this exists as well. And I would say we plan within the tools team to come back to that, streamline that, and make it more accessible, let's say in the time frame of the next months or years. Not currently, but a bit later.
Yeah. With the wheels, I really like the concept. I'm still struggling. I'm still struggling a bit because of the scalability problem. And one of the things that Martin Duha was mentioning is that, hey, does this mean that the test that I'm running might not have even the latest code? So, but that's a different topic. For now, I am still fixated on the idea of using cpan releases for external
Sure.
for external, and we can even think about using wheels as well. So not only doing cpan releases, but doing tags on GitHub.
Exactly. And then you would
And
be
then
able to use either the Git checkout from the tag or the cpan
exactly.
release, which would be from the same.
Exactly. Yeah. So one thing that we can consider when it comes to the wheels is adding that part of I don't know. Hey, can I use either Git or a cpan release? But that's part of the conversation that we want to have. And one of the things is that at least the idea of talking about this during this workshop is to introduce the concept to a broader audience of the openQA ecosystem idea. And then during the OpenSUSE conference by the end of June, Oliver and I will be having a talk, I think in the gallery, about openQA and the ecosystem. So I really look forward to talking directly to some of the participants here.
So again, also we would welcome the feedback from guys if you support the ideas, if you have the same problems or different problems. Yes, at best, you're looking into contributing yourself and want to have some starting points there, then we're happy to give those as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And in relation to that, I would like to point out that during the first Friday of each month, mostly I'm doing the roadmap presentation discussion in this workshop. So that also goes along with that because let's say in the recent past we haven't been able to work on any of the related topics that Santi presented because we are still busy with other things. Some part of it are prerequisites like the full version control awareness. Some other parts like, data center migration at SUSE has no relation to that ecosystem at all. It just shows what we are busy with and where we really appreciate if Santi leads that endeavor to, have members of your team help there and contribute there and not wait endlessly that we would fulfill all your Christmas wishes, but have
yeah, this is definitely and so part of my wish here is that this is not seen as just the work of just the tools team, but also that we understand what the tools team is doing, what QE Core platform will be doing, but also giving more the allowing others and empowering others to also contribute, so that it's not just a few persons, but a broader community. So and of course from we have been working already and trying to push into implementing things here and there. So, and I think that has been paying off. So
right.
We just look forward to more of that.
Yep. Okay, cool. Okay, guys. So with this, I would like to stop the workshop execution here. I'm not sure what would be done next week. I don't really care. I'm on vacation. You can use with that time slot whatever you want, or maybe somebody will invite you then with a specific topic. So thanks, Santi. Thanks, everybody else. And with that, yep, meeting's over. Thank you and see you. Goodbye.